Once upon a time, long before smokestacks and oil derricks formed the skyline, long before jet planes roared their supersonic symphony, long before radio, television, and radar, long before all of this, there was a little valley in which nestled a peaceful village. All about this village, stretching far and wide over hill and dale, lay the great blue forest. Here life flowed peacefully along until one day, a sturdy woodsman named Jonathan began to chop down a huge tree. The birds and little animals were terrified and darted wildly to and fro. Suddenly, right out of thin air, a very pretty young girl appeared between Jonathan and the tree. In a way, she resembled any village girl, and yet she was different, very different. Jonathan, startled, dropped his axe and exclaimed,
"Look here, young woman, I might have cut you in half."
No axe can harm me, Jonathan. Honest Jonathan. That is your name, isn't it?
Honest be name, honest be nature. Now, young woman, kindly step aside. I've business with that tree.
And so have I. I've come to ask you not to cut it down.
Oh, fancy now, have you? And may I ask what you have to do with it?
You see, I'm queen of this forest.
Oh, and I'm the Emperor of China.
Very well, then. Spare this tree, Jonathan, and he'll bless you. And so shall I.
Of course, if you put it like that. All right.
Oh, thank you, Jonathan. You shall not go unrewarded. I'll grant you 3 wishes.
What? Anything I wish for? 3 times?
Of course.
Ah! I ought to have more sense. First, I give away the finest tree, and then I start talking about 3 wishes. Fairy tales, all fairy tales. Where are you? Where have you gone?
The forest queen had vanished. Jonathan stared a moment at the spot where she had stood, then ran home through the forest to tell his beloved wife, Anna, about the 3 wishes that amazingly had been granted to them. As they sat at dinner, he said,
"Now then, Anna, let me tell you, I was chopping away at that big oak tree, the one I was telling you about, when all of a sudden there was the most wonderful smell of roses. Cabbage. Oh, it's cabbage. Can't we ever eat anything else?
We can't afford anything else. You should thank the good Lord for what he provides.
But just for once, I wish he'd provide a nice big juicy sausage.
It's here. Where did it come from?
I told you, it's what I've been trying to tell you all the time. She granted us 3 wishes.
She? Who is she?
Why, the vision, of course, the beautiful lady. And she was so young.
Oh, shame on you, an old man, talking like that.
So lovely.
That sausage should grow in your nose for saying such a thing. A sausage!
See what you've done. She's granted our 2nd wish. Now 2 of our wishes are wasted. Maybe you don't mind me walking around like this, but I do. And I wish this thing was off my nose this very instant.
You ought to be ashamed. Once in a lifetime, poor people like us can ask for anything they want. And what do you wish for? A sausage. We had 3 perfectly good wishes. And what have we to show for them? Tell me what? Nothing. Jonathan, I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
That's all right, Anna. Let's forget it.
Hand in hand now, they went into the next room. This was the nursery, so fondly built for the child which had been denied them. Here was a beautiful cradle, and here, too, were all kinds of gay and wonderful toys. A jack-in-the-box, a Chinese Humpty Dumpty named Confucian, many smartly uniformed musicians, everything a child could wish for. Sorrowfully, Anna and Jonathan gazed about the nursery.
No, Anna. A toy without a child is almost as sad as a child without a toy.
Oh, Jonathan, we were so foolish. Our dream could have come true.
There's still hope, Anna. She might grant us another wish. Just a little one, maybe.
It wouldn't matter to me how little he was. I'd love him with all my heart. Even if he were no bigger than my son.
Retiring for the night, Anna and Jonathan had just dropped off to sleep when they were awakened suddenly by a knock on the door. Lantern in hand, Jonathan opened the door and peered out. But to his surprise, he could see no one.
Who's there?
Is this Acorn Cottage?
That's right.
The home of Jonathan the woodcutter?
Yes, but I can't see you.
Well, lower your candle. Down here.
Glory be. Come in, lad, come in.
Oh, thanks. I'm cold. Oh, that feels good, Father.
Father? You called me father?
Of course. Don't you recognize your own son?
Oh, I think I understand. Tell me, were you sent by the beautiful lady?
That's right.
Welcome, son. Welcome.
Thanks. I hurried, too, as fast as I could so I could get here on my birthday.
Jonathan? Who is it?
Just a minute, Anna.
Who's that?
That's your mother, son. Come on, let's surprise her. We have a visitor, Anna. A little visitor. He's going to stay with us as long as we live.
Tom.
Huh, how did you know my name, Mother?
I've always known what your name would be. Oh, I'm so happy.
I am, too. But isn't a fellow supposed to have a cake on his birthday?
For goodness sake, of course. You must be starving. Jonathan, build a fire up. I'll fix something right away.
Mug for a table, spool for a chair, nice and stable, room to spare. Thimble for a cup, button for a plate. Now ready to celebrate. Happy birthday, son.
Happy birthday, son.
Happy birthday, everyone!
It's getting late, and I have to fix you something to wear. Come along. It's time for little boys to be in bed.
After all these years, after all my tears, after all the lonely days I've known, now I have a son, such a tiny one, like a little doll, but a baby all my own. Now my world is bright, things have turned out right. After all my doubts and all my fears, you belong to me, and we'll live happily together ever after all these years.
Good night, Mom. Good night, Dad.
Next morning, the toys and Confucian awakened Tom.
Cho sang hop phong yo hop ting hey dong do ting ching hey song go ting hey ting hey ho phong ting ching hey ho ting ching you, which in Chinaland means good morning.
Oh, good morning, Mr.
Allow unworthy one to introduce your humble servant, Confucian. I'm bidding you on behalf of all toys in Nusley a most glorious welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning,
Oh.
Tom.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I didn't know toys could talk.
All very grateful to you, Tom, to bring us to life. Grown-ups can't do that. They are too smart. You see, Tom, many years, this has been a very lonely place without you. And now that you're here, we are so happy. We want to celebrate.
Hey, that's my song. A la di da di da, di da di da di la di da di da, di la hi, di da di da dum, la di da di dum, la di da di dum dum dum. This is my song, my very own song. I can sing it short or I can sing it long. Doo 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 doo, dee doo 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 doo. Dum dum, toody doody dum dum, toody doody dum dum dum, hoop hoop. Doody doody doo, doody 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 dum dum, doody doody dum dum, doody doody dum dum dum. La di da di da, di da di da di da di da di da. This is my song, my very own song. I can sing it short or I can sing it long.
Now the toy band joyfully went into action. And while the horns tooted and the cymbals crashed, toy soldiers paraded around the nursery just like real soldiers. Then the other toys, and even Tom, no bigger than your thumb, mind you, joined them, and everyone was merrily marching and dancing and prancing about when at the height of the gaiety, Confucian cried out a warning.
Everybody, run! Run, I'm coming! Back in place! Hurry! Run, everybody! Hurry! Excuse me, please.
What are you doing out of your cradle? The sun's hardly up.
Ah, the toys are giving me a party.
The toys gave you a party.
Well, we were having a party. Honest, we were singing and dancing and jumping and in the...
Now listen, son. Imagination's all right in a little boy, but don't let it go too far. Never forget your father's name is Honest Jonathan.
After breakfast, the tiny boy went with his father into the Blue Forest to gather wood. While Jonathan walked, Tom perched brightly atop Sally, the donkey, and chirped out commands to her.
Left, Sally! Another turn coming, Father. Left again?
Yes.
Sally, left again.
Son, this donkey seems to understand every word you say.
Sure. I understand him, too. What was that?
A cry from the Black Swamp.
What's a swamp?
An evil place, son, where horrid birds and animals live. You must never go inside there. They'd gobble up a little lad like you in no time.
Later on, father and son were hard at work in a clearing, unaware that from behind a nearby bush, two very strange men were watching them. One was crafty Ivan, tall and thin, and the other was tough Tony, short and fat. They were on their way to rob the village treasury. Tom, the smallest human they'd ever seen, amazed them. Ivan whispered to Tony,
Can it be real? It must be. It lives and breathes. Anthony. I have an inspiration of unparalleled brilliance. This little fellow can help us with our job.
What, that little splinter? He couldn't lift a feather.
Ah, but you forget the old adage. There are more ways than one to crack a vault. He can wiggle through the keyhole. Now watch me strike a bargain with the old man. Your gracious pardon, sir. My colleague and I are showmen of prominence on our way to the annual fair, and we were wondering what price you put upon the little lad.
Price? What do you mean? Do you want to buy him? He's not for sale. He's my son.
Oh, we understand. Don't we, Anthony?
Yes, we do.
Who would argue with a father's heart?
Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, Woody, the village piper, was searching for the girl he loved, the queen of the forest. She loved him too, but she didn't dare let him kiss her because a kiss would turn her into a mortal. And she wasn't ready to become a real human being and marry Woody.
Queenie! Where have you been? I've been calling for you. I've been looking for you all through the forest.
Oh, poor Woody.
Well, I just secured the position as second woodwind in the Royal Military Band.
I think that's wonderful.
Do you really?
Woody,
Yes.
would you promise me something?
Anything in the world.
Well, you won't ever, under any circumstances, ever try to kiss me, will you?
Oh, no, certainly not. Funny how a fella can change, you know. There was a time when I wouldn't have thought twice about kissing a girl as pretty as you. Oh, I was a terrible fella.
Were you, Woody?
I certainly was. Kissing, always kissing girls. Sometimes even when they weren't looking.
At that moment, Queenie disappeared from view because Jonathan and Tom were approaching. Piping gaily, Woody went forward to meet them.
Hello, Woody. Good afternoon, Jonathan. Meet my son, Tom.
Pleased to meet you, young man. Oh, goodbye now.
What's the hurry, Woody? Why don't you come home and have supper with us?
Thanks, Jonathan. I wish I could, but I can't. I have a job.
You? Working?
Certainly. So long. I'll see you at the fair on Sunday.
Oh, I don't think you will.
Oh, Jonathan. How can you let this little fella miss seeing the fair? Look, if you can't take him, let him go with me. I'll show him a good time. He'll be the guest of the second woodwind in the Royal Military Band.
And so on Sunday, Woody took Tom to the fair. And while Woody played with the band, Tom sat on the brim of his big friend's cap and watched wide-eyed the gayest festivities he had ever seen. In front of a brightly colored wagon, a jolly cobbler sang about his wonderful dancing shoes, which were so talented they could actually dance.
Step up, step up, step up, step up. Step up, my friends, and see my shoes. I made them especially for you to use. And I can show you the smartest shoes that you ever saw at a fair. Step up, my friends, and see them shine. You never saw shoes that shine like mine, because I handle the talented line, exactly the kind you should wear. These shoes upon my shelf are shoes I wear myself. These are talented shoes, talented shoes, talented shoes. They leap and jump and hop and skip, and every step is full of zip. These are talented shoes, talented shoes, talented shoes. A man is wise to choose.
I'll have
such
a pair.
talented, 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 talented shoes.
Hey, Tom, what do you think of those dancing shoes?
Huh?
The dancing shoes.
Oh, I think they're wonderful.
I think so, too. Let's get some.
But don't you have to stay here?
Oh, I'll be back before it's my turn to play again. They'll never miss me for a few minutes. Hold on, Tom. Let's go.
For Tom, the cobbler had the tiniest pair in the world, shoes he'd made to be worn on a watch chain. These were the dancingest shoes of all. But as they danced little Tom around the square, he came dangerously close to being stepped on by the big dancers. He could not stop dancing. Finally, in desperation, he grabbed hold of a toy balloon floating by and was lifted high above everybody. He was riding higher and higher in the sky when Woody, who had been searching everywhere for him, suddenly caught sight of the little lad.
Tom! Hey, Woody, look at me!
Don't let go, Tom! Hang on!
Forgetting all about his band job, Woody started off to rescue Tom. In the meantime, on top of the village treasury, those robbers, Ivan and Tony, could not raise the iron grating that guarded the bags of gold in the vault below. Then they saw Tom floating by on the balloon, and an idea struck them. With a slingshot, Tony broke the balloon, and as the startled Tom fell through the air, Ivan neatly stuck out his hat and caught him. Not at all aware that the men were robbers, Tom said gratefully,
Thank you. You saved my life.
Think nothing of it, young fellow. Fate decreed that I should be present in your hour of need. Young fellow, talking about hour of need, it would seem that you dropped in. Dropped in just when my companion and I could use your assistance in the performance of a good deed.
Oh, I'll be glad to help. But what do I have to do?
Come over here. The mayor of this village is an absolute rascal, right? Now, he has the money belonging to the poor orphans down there, and he intends to keep it all for himself. Now, if you go down this rope and help us to get the money out, we will see that it is distributed amongst those to whom it rightfully belongs. Eh?
I don't know. Maybe I should ask my father or Woody.
Oh, no, there's no necessity to bother them. I'm sure they would approve. In fact, I'm quite certain your father would be very proud of you. Very proud. Oh, yes.
He would?
Yes, of course he would. Come on, let's pull the job. I mean, let us do our best to help the poor little orphans.
Tom was lowered through the grate to the vault. The robbers were very quiet so the treasury guard wouldn't hear. Finally, he was on the bottom, and there were the bags of gold.
What should I do now?
Tie the rope to one of those bags.
Which one?
The biggest one. Then climb on and we'll pull you up.
When Tom reached the top with the gold, Tony whispered to Ivan,
Let's get rid of the kid now, so he won't open his mouth. Out of your mind. Leave this to me. Now, listen, my dear fellow. We're going to take you for a nice little ride.
Climbing down from the treasury, Ivan and Tony took the unsuspecting Tom to the edge of the terrible black swamp. There, the crafty Ivan pointed to the road leading into it and threw Tom one of the stolen gold coins.
Now, Tom, this is where we must part. Now, that's the road that takes you home. By the way, I'm sure the dear little orphans would like you to have this. Run and get it.
Tom caught the gold coin and tucked it under his shirt for safekeeping.
Tooty tooty too.
Bye.
Tom walked along the road through the swamp. It was dark now, and the weird animal sounds and the black twisted swamp trees were frightening to the little fellow. He struggled to show courage by whistling, but the whistle was only a whisper. Then came an awful scream. Panicked, Tom ran right into the cold, black, slimy water and began to sink beneath the surface. Then from nowhere, the queen of the forest appeared and scooped him gently out of the water.
Where have you been all day?
Oh, all over the place. I had a wonderful time. I got some talented shoes, and then I went dancing, and I rode on a balloon. Oh, I've just been helping two friends of mine do a good deed.
Until it got dark and you fell into the swamp.
I'd have got out anyway, but thanks just the same. What was that?
Hi, Queenie.
Hello, Woody.
Do you realize I have searched every inch of this forest trying to find you?
Well, I'm sorry you got lost.
I got lost. You got lost, you mean? I've been looking for you all day. The trouble with you, Tom, is you have no sense of responsibility.
Responsibility? What about your sense of responsibility? You were to keep your job and take care of Tom. I think you'd better take him straight home.
Woody picked Tom up and carried him home. From outside the cottage window, they could see Jonathan angrily pacing back and forth. Slipping through the window, Tom was tiptoeing along a tabletop towards the nursery, hoping his father wouldn't see him, when accidentally he collided with a vase. He lost his balance, the gold coin rolled out of his shirt into a pan of bread dough beneath the table, and at the same moment, the vase fell over with a crash.
So, you finally decided to come home. Now, you tell me what you've been doing all this time, and it better be good.
We'll talk about it in the morning. Say goodnight to your father.
Good night, Father. I'm sorry.
Later, lying in his cradle, Tom was so sad over the worry he had caused his parents that he couldn't sleep. The toys and his friend Confucian saw this and asked what was wrong.
I've just made my folks so unhappy, and I'm so sorry.
Being sorry, next best thing to being good. Number one suggests you go sleep.
I can't sleep. I just feel so bad I can't sleep.
Problem easily remedied. Let me introduce Yawning Man. Very good friend.
I'm the yawning man, the yawning man. I come when shadows creep. With my yawning song, I stroll along and help put people to sleep. If you just can't sleep and you're tired as could be, there's a remedy. It's the yawning melody. If you yawn, 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 then you sleep, sleep, sleep till the dawn, dawn, dawn. So let's all If the Sandman comes and his sack he unties, tell him go away, who wants sand thrown in his eyes. If you yawn, 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 sleep, 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 till dawn, dawn, so let's all yawn.
Try it, Tom.
If you still can't sleep and you're slumbering, if your eyelids burn and you squirm and twist and turn, you try to yawn, 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 then you sleep, 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 till the dawn, 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 so let's all yawn.
The next morning, there was a big storm in the forest. Several soldiers sought shelter at the cottage. The village treasury had been robbed, they said, and they were looking for the thieves when the storm broke. The kindly Anna invited them in out of the rain to have breakfast. One very hungry soldier quickly bit into the gold piece, which was in her freshly baked bread.
Ouch! How now, madam? Are you in the habit of baking your bread in the village treasury?
I haven't the least idea how it could have got there.
This coin is part of the stolen money. Where's the rest of it?
Are you accusing us of thievery?
Yes.
And you call yourself Honest Jonathan?
You're both under arrest.
Wake up!
In the nursery, Tom, awakened by the loud voices in the other room, had soon realized his parents were in trouble, and why. He tried at once to go to their aid, but the door was latched, and he, of course, was far too short to reach up to it. However, his friend Jack in the Box popped up mightily and lifted the latch. Tom and Confucian raced out, but the soldiers had already taken Tom's parents away. Sick at heart over the trouble he had caused his parents by getting mixed up with the robbers, the wee Tom was near tears. Confucian moved sympathetically to his side.
Little man, big trouble?
Oh, Confucian. What am I going to do?
To prove innocence, find guilty one.
I know who the robbers are.
With such knowledge, problem easily solved.
Yes. So all I have to do is find the robbers and have them put in jail. That's what I'm going to do.
Immediately, Tom started to search for the robbers. As he scurried through the woods, he ran into his big friend, Woody.
Hi.
Oh, hello, Tom. Where are you going?
Well, I have to go catch a couple of criminals.
Really? And what have they done?
Well, they robbed the treasury, and my folks got blamed for it, too, and they took them to prison.
Oh, no. Well, that's terrible.
Of course it's terrible. Well, are you going to come and help me?
Oh, help, of course, Tom.
Well, come on, then. I know what they look like, too. One of them has a big, tall hat, and the other's a big, fat man.
Wait a minute. Are they dressed in black?
Yes, and...
It's them. You know who they are, and I know where they are. Come on, Tom.
Carrying the courageous little Tom in his hand, Woody set off for an old castle in the forest, where, sure enough, were the robbers Ivan and Tony in the act of dividing the stolen gold.
One for two for you and two for me. Three for you and three for me. Four for you and four for me. Five for you and five for me.
I've come to take that money back where it belongs.
12 for you, 12 for me.
Give me that money, do you hear?
Give me that money, do you hear? 14 for you, 14 for me.
The robbers continued to ignore Woody, so he grabbed for the money. Without warning, Tony hit Woody on the chin.
I told him to go away. Yes, I heard you. Now we start again. Maybe we better leave and share the booty later. Hey, I want mine now. Very well.
Woody had been knocked cold. Now the odds against Tom were enormous, but he wasn't giving up. When the robber's attention was elsewhere, he shifted the gold coins so that Ivan and Tony began to suspect each other of cheating.
Ivan, there's a crook in here, and it's not me. There are two crooks in here, and they are both you.
Furious at each other, the tall, thin robber and the short, fat robber began to fight. First upright and then on the floor, using clubs, bottles, and swords. The battle was at its raging peak when the robbers suddenly spied Tom.
Hey, the kid!
Forgetting their own differences, they lunged in pursuit of Tom. Caught once by Tony, he bit his way free and hid. Then they saw him again.
There he is.
Now Tom had to flee. Up the stairs he scampered with the robbers hot on his heels. At the very top of the castle, he found himself trapped. The robbers were almost upon him. Backing away desperately, Tom failed to see the open window behind him and fell through it. Help! Down, right into the horse's watering trough.
Now, let's get the money, eh? Pleasant dreams, Bunny Sarah. Come on.
As the robbers fled from the castle with the gold, riding double on the only horse available, Woody regained consciousness. Unable to find Tom, he borrowed Sally, the donkey, and set off with a vengeance after the robbers. Back in the village square, meanwhile, the soldiers were preparing to whip poor Jonathan and Anna for their alleged theft of the gold.
Before carrying out the sentence, I am going to give you one last chance. Where have you hidden the money?
I can only repeat, sir, we know nothing about it.
Tell the town lecher to prepare.
At the very moment this order was being given, Ivan and Tony, on the one horse, were riding furiously along a road that would take them far from the village they had robbed. But unknown to them, Tom had survived the fall into the trough and had hidden himself in the ear of the robber's horse. Because he could talk to animals, he now was able to direct the horse where he wanted it, to the village so that the robbers would be caught and his beloved parents freed.
Crossroad coming. Let you go straight ahead.
Straight into the crowded village square they raced. As Tom suddenly stopped the horse, the robbers and the gold crashed to the ground.
Stop! There are the robbers. They stole the money. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad.
Fetch those men!
Ivan and Tony tried to escape on foot, but Woody, who'd followed fast on the donkey, captured them. Now he and Tom were the heroes of the village. Queenie, appearing out of thin air beside Woody, was very, very proud of him. He had proved himself. At last, he kissed her, and she became mortal.
Queenie, you're real.
As soon as possible, Woody and Queenie were married in the village church, and afterwards there was a joyful party at Jonathan's cottage, with songs and dances and a great big wedding cake. In the center of the cake stood Tiny Tom, dressed as a bridegroom. Right beside him stood a lovely bride, but only a doll. Then, remembering what had happened to Queenie, Tom kissed the doll, and suddenly she became mortal. A bride for Tom, too.
Doody-doo.
And of course, they lived happily ever after.